Good afternoon. My name is Katie Murphy, and I work at Bellarmine College Preparatory in San Jose, California, and I'm delighted to be talking to you today about how to make the summer count. It's a very exciting time and tense time, I think, for juniors who are thinking about applying for college the following year and trying to balance both the college process with being a high school junior and ultimately being a high school senior. So I'm here to help you a little bit with that and realize that you're also a person and you've got a life, and we want to make sure that you have some balance in that life. So let's start, shall we? So sometimes people think, why should I work on my college applications or work on any piece of the college process in the summer? Because, the beach is fun, but there might be some things you might want to do this summer that are new that might be just as fun. The newest video game is out, but often it's good to spend some time working with actual people, seeing them face to face, and learning new skills. Or I just want to hang out with my friends. And I just want to hang out with my friends is an important part of being a high school junior. But also, your friends should be making the summer count as well, and there's plenty of time to hang out with your friends. So as we talk about this, we want to make sure that you look at the summer as four, if you can do four things, then you can spend some good time with your family and friends. One is, if you explore your college options now, you can go ahead and try to look at the colleges that you're thinking about so that by the end of the summer you know where you're going to apply. And it's important to put that time in because you're talking about 4 to 5 years of your life. It's in your enlightened self-interest to explore your options. No college is perfect, but we want you to love college, and we not just endure it. We want you to love it. It's an important part of your life. You also have the opportunity to visit some colleges to see, if you haven't had that chance already, to see what campuses resonate with you. What's that feeling in the pit of your stomach? We also encourage our juniors to undertake two significant activities, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And we want you to begin writing those essays, because those essays are the things that take the longest in the college application process. If you can get some of that work done over the summer, your senior year will be phenomenal, and that's what you want to do, is have a great senior year, right? So, in terms of exploring your options, remember there are over 4,000 colleges and universities within the United States and many more abroad. Some will be right for you, some will be wrong for you, some will be right for your cousins, some were right from your parents perhaps, but we really want you to focus on the colleges that are right for you. So do think about what you yourself want, not what your cousin wants for you, not what your aunt wants for you, not your boyfriend or the girl down the street. Don't rely on what others say unless you're working with a college counselor or a counselor at your school. Make sure that you investigate for yourself, because you're the one who's going to college. Do find colleges that offer most of what you want to at least start the process. And don't worry about the small stuff now. There's plenty of times later to be able to do that. So as we move on, one of the things that we would like you to do is ask questions of yourself if you haven't had the opportunity to work with a counselor yet. And so let's try to find some options for you. What is your best learning environment? Do you learn best when talking with a faculty member in discussion? Do you learn best when sitting back and listening to a lecture? What kinds of things make your mind swim and make connections between ideas that haven't been made before? Because that's really the point of education. You also have some opportunity to think about, how far from home do you want to be? What kind of location? Do you want to be close to ski slopes? Do you want to be close to a city? How far is it from an airport? Your parents and your family are probably concerned about that. And what about weather? Are you ready to take on the East Coast and look at cold weather? Are you ready to go to a warm state? Are you ready for a change in the environment, or would you rather have an environment that's close to home. So those are some important questions. And then there's some other ones to think about when you're thinking about exploring. Do I need some outside financial support, either from the college or from the federal or state government? Or can my parents afford to send me to college? Or is this on my own? How important is that part of it? Who will I live with? And who will I sit in class with? Who will I have lunch with? What will we talk about at lunch? Where will I live? Is housing guaranteed for the first or 4 years? Will I live off campus? Will I live at home? And then what are the opportunities outside of class? You're in class in college about 16 hours a week, which is a lot less than you're in class in high school. There are opportunities to develop leadership skills, networking skills, and just have fun, because this is also a time of your life where you're living through the college experience 24/7. So are athletics important to me? Is it opportunity to do service? What about the arts? What about music? What about Greek life? Are any of those things important to me? Then you can also think about options for majors. And what kinds of options do you have for yourself? Are there co-ops available? What kinds of internships are available? And do I need learning support? And if I do, what kind of learning support's available? And this is an important part of college selection. It's changed over the last 10 to 15 years. What kinds of internships and graduate placement programs do they have? What types of jobs are their graduates getting? What types of law schools or medical schools or graduate schools are those alumni going on to? Because during the time that you're in college, you're going to be spending the summers then working on exploring your career options, doing some significant work, and this is a good chance to explore what's possible at those colleges. We think that that's important. Okay? So as you're doing that, you can use the Big Future, which is a College Board service, which is a totally free service, and use the College Search program through that. If you go to Explore Colleges, you'll have an opportunity to answer questions about the things that are most important to you. And remember, let's talk about what's important to you, to make you happy, to make you love the college that you go to, and focus on the things that are important to you. So the Big Future gives you a really strong search engine for that, and gives you an opportunity to look at 100% matches or mostly matches, and you can decide the characteristics that are of high priority to you. And again, someone else may have a different set of priorities, and that's perfectly fine, but we want you to focus in on how this is going. So you look at the Big Future search, and what you do is you click on the items as they are important. We do ask that you finish the entire survey so that you can look at that, and concentrate first in terms of research on the colleges that are 100% matches. And you can do the search over and over again and put in different criteria, so don't worry about that. But do that research on the things that are most important to you. The one thing that I would encourage you to do is don't eliminate a college just because you haven't heard of it. Do the research. It may be a perfect fit for you, and it may be an opportunity for you to explore something brand new. And just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean that they don't have outstanding alumni support or research opportunities. It's just something that we look at in terms of all the different kinds of opportunities that you might have. I think that's important. As we look at those issues, you can have the opportunity to use other exploration tools. Certainly your high school counselor, college counselor at your high school is your first expert. You want to make sure that you've spent some time talking with that person about your goals and your dreams, and use your counselor, because often they know a lot more about college than a lot of other people. They're up to date, hopefully, on all the new developments in college, new programs that are offered, new scholarships that are available. So definitely use your college counselor in this process. We also encourage you to read a guidebook, and just go to a bookstore, read through guidebooks, see which one you like best. You can download them to computers or iPads or other platforms. because the websites for the colleges give you the skeleton. The guidebooks give you the internal part of what it's like to be a student there. There's also opportunities to watch videos of campus tours on their college website, but also to look at different types of other opportunities like on U University or Unigo or other videos that will give you more of a sense of what that campus is like. And that is all to prepare for visiting a college. But the first thing I would say is that if you've done a search, if you have a list of colleges you're interested in, don't be shy. Go on their websites and request information. Make sure that they know who you are, where you go to high school, what your interests are, because that's the only way they can send you special information about scholarships, about visiting programs, about different kinds of new academic programs or extracurricular programs you might be interested in. It's okay to go to request information from a college. It's not a total commitment. You're not signing your life away, but go on to those websites for the colleges, request information, because that's the best way to learn more about what that institution has to offer. Once you've done some research, it's a good idea to visit some colleges. Many of you have probably already visited. We encourage our students to know why they're visiting. You just don't go to the Boston area and only visit Harvard and MIT and Tufts. You don't go to Southern California and only visit UCLA and USC. You need to go to colleges that match your interests. So this research is important so that you can tell your parents or tell whoever's going to go on you with the visit why specifically I want to visit that campus. What is it I'm really interested in and how that's going to work. And so we think that that's a very important part of all of this. We also want you to plan official visits. It's great to know your brother's best friend goes to school there, and you could certainly meet that person later for coffee and find out what his impressions are. But go to the information session. Go ahead and take an official campus tour and find out all the things that are possible there, and then you can certainly refer to friends or alums from your high school who attend there about other things that are operational at that college. And also requesting a visit time also signs you up to receive information from that college. But include the colleges where you have a chance of admission. And as you looked at your guidebooks, that you looked at the websites, you're going to understand where reach schools might be, where safety schools might be, where target or possibilities might be. Don't just go visit reach schools. It's important that you take the opportunity, if you're going to spend the time and the money and the time away from a job or your family to go ahead and go visit, that you use that visit time wisely. We think that that's really important. Okay. As you visit colleges, it's important to know that you can visit about 2 a day. I've tried 3. It's very hard. They have appointments in the morning for tours and information sessions, and then in the afternoon generally. And often they fill up, especially if it's a large public institution, so make sure you plan ahead. You want to definitely prepare your parents for the visit. What are you looking for? Why are you visiting? They're going to have questions. You're going to have questions. Sometimes it's better for parents to make sure that you get your questions answered first. And if your parents ask questions, don't worry. They're concerned about you. They won't embarrass you. It'll be fine. But they need to know what's available at that campus for you, because they love you and they want to make sure that you're in good shape. If you don't have the financial resources or the time to travel very far, then pick out some local colleges that are like the colleges you might be thinking of, even if you're thinking of applying far away. So go to the local big public institution if you're thinking about big public institutions. Go to the small private liberal arts college that might only be 50 miles away if you're thinking about liberal arts colleges in Minnesota, so that you can get a feel about it. And I truly believe that once you're on a college campus, you know in the pit of your stomach whether you will be successful there, whether that could be a place. It might not. Some people walk on a campus and say, this is the place for me, I'm done. Most people walk on a campus and say, this is what I like, I'm not liking the vibe here. And trust that feeling in the pit of your stomach, trust your gut, and we will definitely get through that process. And also watch out for things that are important to you. If you are a dancer, ask to see the dance facility. If you are an athlete, ask to see the swimming pool. If you love to read, find out what the library hours are. Don't be afraid to ask for things, to see things that are very important for you. Okay? Great. And then we're going to ask you to do some other things this summer. 2 significant activities, and really it doesn't matter what those might be. It could be working, it could be playing a sport or practicing a sport and playing it over the summer, or practicing and being in a play, or putting some pieces together for an art portfolio, or it could be putting a card together, it could be reading a series of books, it could be traveling to a place you've never been. All of these opportunities are there for you. It could be an internship, it could be a program at a college, it could be taking a college course, it could be doing service. Any of those things count as significant activities. And the reason we ask you to do those is because you'll need some additional maturity as you go through this process, and these activities will give you some time to do that. You may find something that you love, and that might affect your future choice. And also, these will give you some good opportunities to talk about some things at interviews or in your essays that were significant to you. And so here is the official list of all the things you could do, including taking care of your younger brothers and sisters if that's something that's important, or completing an Eagle Scout project or another significant service project. Pick out 2 things, spend some time doing those, and you will not only grow up, but you'll feel a little bit better as far as this goes. Okay? Great. Awesome. Now to the point of writing the essay. Here we go. Oh, actually, let me go back a second. One other thing that we want you to do after you look at these activities and you get involved in these is to build your resume this summer. If you can complete an official resume this summer, completing your applications would be oh so much easier, because you'll have the dates and time spent on certain activities. And make sure that you include the name of your high school, your grade point average, what kinds of courses you've taken, and anything you've done on campus, including leadership positions. And leadership positions are not limited only to being class president, but if you're in the Red Cross Club and you were in charge of the blood drive, how many pints of blood did you gather? If you play JV soccer and freshman soccer and senior soccer, you can put all of those kinds of things together and put those honors together. If you get this all on a computer screen, if you can get this all on a piece of paper, filling out those applications later on will help, and those significant activities this summer should definitely be included. All right, and that's including activities off campus as well. All right, so let's talk about the essay, and I think that that's been the major point of this program, is to think about beginning writing. And sometimes people love writing. Most high school students, it's a very hard thing to think about writing an essay because it's not an academic essay. You've been taught well by your English teachers to write essays, hopefully, but this is a different type of an essay. It has a different purpose, and depending on which kinds of schools you're applying to, even those essays may differ a little bit in terms of their purpose and in terms of their scope. But think about it this way. An essay is a written interview. You may interview at a college. Probably many of the colleges you're applying to, they don't offer interviews, or you're not able to do that. Think about the essay as a written interview. It gives the admission officer a chance to get to know you better when they're reading those essays. But your essay needs to be in your own voice. It does not need to be an academic ease. It does not need to be the way you would write a history paper. It needs to be about you, and it needs to sound like you. And you need to answer the questions completely. Often students, one of the biggest mistakes they made is they answer the first part of the essay prompt in their essay, and they never get to, and why is that important to you? Or, and how does that affect your world? So make sure you understand the entire essay prompt when you're going to sit down and write it. So here we go. So let's talk about how you might do this. And you may have been doing this with your counselor, or maybe in an English class. But this is a good way if you haven't had an opportunity to do that, or you want to spend a little bit of time yourself or with a small group of friends putting it together. So we're going to brainstorm the essay. And the first thing you need to understand in getting this message across is, what would the admission officer who's going to read this essay not know about you by reading the rest of your application? The essay is not a repeat of your application activities. You don't list all kinds of things in there. You really talk about a moment in time that has meant something to you, that developed into something else. And that would not appear necessarily on your application. It may be within an activity that already appears on your application, but it's going to be about something that's very significant to you. And we see cliched essays all the time. For those of you who are athletes, the winning goal or the scoring the final point is kind of a cliched essay, because a lot of student athletes could write that. But what's different about what you specifically did? Did you say something to the one of your teammates? Did you talk about rearranging some work with some of the younger players? What specifically did you do to make that outcome come to pass? I work with a lot of students who do a lot of service, who go on immersion trips or spend a lot of time working with the poor, and those are very important experiences in their lives. But the cliched essay that comes out of that is, I worked with poor people and I realized that I have an opportunity to do better in the future, and I also realize how well my family has helped me. Those are good essays if you could talk specifically about how your personal life has changed, the things that you've done have changed as a result of that activity, because a lot of people can talk about those things. If there's been a tragedy in your life or a problem you've overcome, think about how personal that can be without taking any unnecessary risks in the essay, because college admission officers don't need to know every single detail. But think about what specifically it is about you that would reveal more. And that if you can focus on that, you will do very well in this process. Another way to look at it is to just sit down for 15 minutes or 5 minutes and list 10 to 15 characteristics that define you. Do you love pasta? Do you love to watch the Olympics? Do you tutor your younger brother in math? Do you not like certain things? Give yourself characteristics that really define you. Are you a chocoholic? Are you someone who goes out of their way to help other people by making sure that everyone's safe? Think about the things that you actually do. And then after you've written that list of characteristics, then cluster those characteristics into similar things that would actually define you or tell a story about you. And you'll see some similarities if you're able to do that. In the next part of brainstorming, what we ask you to do is look at those clusters and see, do any of those clusters relate to the essay topic at hand? Does something define you? Does a set of characteristics define you to have a story to tell? And think about what story that is. And again, what do you want the college admission officer to know about you at the end of reading the essay that they wouldn't know otherwise? And I keep coming back to that, and I think it's because I have very thick glasses. I was on the college admission side for 28 years and read countless essays, and I read a lot of essays from my seniors every fall. And we really want to make sure your voice comes through. That's really, really important. And then start writing. Don't self-edit, just start putting some things down. Write. Don't worry about word length, just write out what's in your heart, write out the pieces of the cluster that relate to you, and then go back and organize it. If you like to write with pen and paper or pencil and paper, sit down and force yourself not to pick up your pencil, just write for 15 minutes. You'll be surprised at what comes out, and you'll be surprised at the organization of it, because you're telling a story and you know how to do that. In terms of the first edit, after you've done that, the first thing we want you to do is read through it and say, does it sound like me? Or does it sound like a typical high school student who's written an English essay? Or does it sound like my brother? Read it out loud. This is a very important strategy that we use. If you read it out loud, would it be like you were telling your grandmother a story, or you were telling your college counselor a story? Somebody that knows you well, but also is not going to be really looking for slang or kind of misunderstandings in terms of the phrasing of your essays. Make sure that you're telling the story fairly clearly and use words to explain that. And make sure that that story is appropriate for a college admission officer or your grandmother or your college counselor to hear. At that point, after you've done the first essay, check the word count, because word counts are becoming much more important. Many college application sites are limiting the word count, and you don't want to go over. You don't want to go too far under, but you don't want to go over either. And if you're doing this first edit, now's the time to go back and look at what's absolutely necessary to the story. As I'm talking about working with students in Bolivia, and I was down there on an immersion, and I was walking through the streets, and I heard music, and I saw some younger students dancing, and I could smell the aroma of food being cooked, and I could hear the automobiles. Does the aroma of food being cooked and the sound of automobiles really relate to the story, or are you focusing on that interaction you might have with those young people dancing in the street? I think you get my drift on that. And then go back and say, read the essay prompt again, the whole essay prompt, and say, does this answer that question? Is that the way that's gone? So that's very helpful. And then in your second edit, you go back and I think, yes, here we go. You go back and fix that phrasing, fix the words that don't make sense, fix the way that it sounds, and again, read it out loud and go through that. At this point, you want to read the first sentence and the paragraph. In the first paragraph, are those hooks, for lack of a better term? Does it make the reader interested? Does it kind of begin the story or tell the story? Or, as often happens, do you really get to the point in the middle of the first paragraph or at the beginning of the second paragraph? It is not unusual for those of us who work with students and essays completely to look at a student and say, do you really need that first paragraph? Because all you're doing is kind of setting this up, and do you want to get to the point? Think about what's needed. And then also read the last sentence and the last paragraph. Are they relevant? Are they relevant to the question? Do they make a point? Do they tell something about you, or are you just trying to sum some things up? Because often, again, you're going to cut off the first or second sentence at the end, because you're really making that point toward the end. Think about that and go back and do that. So it's important also that you know the context of these essays. Admission officers are reading about 100 to 300 of these essays every week. Especially as the number of applications has increased, you have an opportunity to say something important about yourself, but they're reading 100 to 300 of these a week. So they're skimming through the application, they're looking at transcripts, they're looking at test scores, they're reading references, they're reading all kinds of information. And the essay, again, is the written interview, is the opportunity for you to make a point. It's the only thing you write about yourself. Everything else is either written about you or grades you have earned but other people have given you. So then you get back to this and you realize after the second edit that you have your essay checked. Now, some students shop their essays around. They have their parents read them. They have the guy down the street who got into a highly selective institution. They bring him to the college counselor. They bring him to the English teacher. And what usually happens in those cases is everything that the student's voice would have said has been edited out, because this person looks at this and this person looks at that, and all of a sudden the student has been erased from the essay. So we ask you to choose one person to do that. Maybe that's your college counselor or a counselor at your high school. Maybe that's a trusted friend who understands the point of the essay, that it's not just a resume redux, it's an actual opportunity for you to make a point. And as that person's reading the essay, one of the things I've learned from one of my colleagues is to have them put a blue dot in the essay where they lose interest, where he or she loses interest, so that you can know when those transitions are being made between paragraphs, what actually makes a point. How is this essay flowing? When do you lose interest? And go back and try to fix that part of it. We think that that's important. So having somebody look at it, just go back and help you with that. Then you're going to rewrite the essay again. Go back to the question. Are you answering the question? This is the time to check for spelling, but also, and this is the biggest mistake students write in terms of grammar, is their noun-verb agreement. He, they, have, has, those kinds of connections are often missed when you're editing your own essay. So go back and look and make sure that those are correct. Any other grammar, and does it have a good beginning? Does it have a good ending? Does it sound like you? And is it within the word count that's required by the essay? And then repeat these steps as they're needed. And believe it or not, doing 2 or 3 drafts, maybe 4 or 5 drafts of an essay is very important, because you have an opportunity to put your best foot forward. Let's talk about some specific essays. This year, the Common Application, which has hundreds of members, and it used to include only private colleges, but now includes some very prominent public institutions, has changed their essay requirements. And so anyone who's applied through the Common App before, this would be a whole different process. They are not requiring a long essay and a short essay. They're just requiring one, and the instructions are shown here in this PowerPoint. So again, they say the essay demonstrates your ability to write clearly and concisely on a selected topic and helps you distinguish yourself in your own voice. They are reiterating what I have just said. What do you want them to understand? Choose the option that's best help you, and there is no more than 650 words. They're going to actually have our students cut and paste into a box, not upload. So not 660 words, not 655 words, but 650 words, which is a lot of words, and minimum 250 words. You can get a great essay done in 400 to 600 words, make the point, and move on. And we think that that's important. Longer is not necessarily better. If the story calls for it, then you go for it, but don't think you have to write 650 words exactly. And then they've changed the prompts here, and they've taken out the old topic of your choice, which I know is of concern to some students, because in the past students were able to kind of import other topics from other applications. But there are 5 good topics that give students from all different kinds of backgrounds, socioeconomic, ethnic, cultural, academic, extracurricular backgrounds, an opportunity to talk about themselves and show what they have learned, show the connections they've made between types of learning here. So some students have a background or story that is so central to their identity that they believe their application would be incomplete without it. This is the compelling story. This explains something. Recount an incident or time when you experienced failure. Don't think that if you write that essay, they're going to think less of you. Every person fails at something every day. But what did you learn from it? How did it affect you? What lessons did you learn? Remember to answer the entire essay. Reflect on a time that when you challenged a belief or an idea. What prompted you to act? And they're looking for action here on a specific area. What would you make that same decision again? Again, if you would not make that decision again, that's fine. Just go ahead and explain it. Describe a place or an environment where you're perfectly content. That might be the beach this summer, who knows? What do you experience there, and why is it meaningful to you? And the last one, discuss an accomplishment event, formal or informal, that marked your transition from childhood to adulthood within your culture, community, or family. And those are ors, not ands. So culture or family or community. What event, what happened, one day when an uncle put his hand on your shoulder and said, you're going to sit at the adults table. What did that mean to you? Think about those kinds of options. So you're going to have a lot of different options to think about and to tell the story. Go back to that clustering and see if you have an opportunity to use one of those clusters to tell one of those stories. Certainly within the Common Application, there are supplements that are supplemental essays that individual colleges want answers to. And those will be pared down from what we understand from last year. Some colleges haven't written their supplemental questions or won't have those ready for release until late August. But the University of Chicago will have theirs out very early in the summer. One of their essay prompts and choices 2 years ago was, what is the difference and the connection between Plato and Play-Doh? So you can expect some kind of interesting, quirky prompts from the University of Chicago, is that if that's a school you're considering. But if you know some of the schools you might be applying to and their supplement questions are available, go ahead and draft those this summer and get those as complete as you possibly can. Managing the essay process is important. We don't want you to sit at home on the 20th of October when a lot of people are out celebrating homecoming and you have to write 3 college essays for an early decision or an early action application. Let's start thinking about those now. So the Common Application prompts you have. So if you're applying to any of the hundreds of schools that are listed on the Common Application, you can start working on that now, and I've given you a process for that. If you know you'll be applying to any other public institutions or private institutions whose applications are ready to go for the fall of 2014, make sure that you don't write last year's essay, then go ahead and start working on those now. We think that that's very important. And then once you have your college list together, you can gather all the topics that you need to write on, including the supplements in a computer spreadsheet or on a piece of paper. And often students who apply to, say, 8 colleges might actually end up writing 4 distinct essays and adjust the length or the focus of given essays to match another requirement. Colleges don't expect you to write a brand new essay from the beginning every single time. Some of the supplements will be quirky questions and you may have to do that. But most of the time there are 3 or 4 stories you really want to get across, and you can adjust the length and you can adjust the focus by figuring out which ones would match ahead of time. Don't wait until the end of October and November to start doing that, because we don't want you to be staring at a blank piece of paper in the middle of your senior fall. Sorry. I would give myself 3 to 4 days to work on one essay. That again, the summer makes it easy for you to do that, because you're going to be clustering, you're going to be writing, you're going to be rewriting, you're going to be showing it to someone to look at, you're going to be rewriting it again. And when you get it finished and you're happy with it, put it away and get ready to work on another one, or have a little bit of a break and then come back to that process. These essays are increasingly important in the world of college admissions. They can often tip the scales between admission and not wait list, or a deferral or a deny, when all other things are well. We don't want you to spend so much time on the essays that you're not doing well in your fall grades, or you're not keeping up with your friends, or you're not sleeping. But we do want you to be able to put your best foot forward, and they are that important. Okay? And about the actual application, sometimes parents are concerned and sometimes students really want to get onto the actual applications, but most of those won't be available until mid to late August. The Common Application goes live for 2014 on August 1st, so you would have an opportunity to start looking at those applications. And again, the supplements may be posted by then, maybe a little bit later in August. You can check the individual college websites for that. And again, as you're starting to manage your applications, you may want to be looking at some opportunities for you to say to your counselor or your college counselor, which of these essays should I work on first? If you need a little bit of help managing all of that, your counselor can help you with that, hopefully. And if you finish those essays and you get a good start on it and you gain some confidence about finding your voice, answering questions, and the process, the applications themselves don't take a very long time to complete. They're just some demographic information, listing of some courses, choosing a major, all those things that you've been involved in the process. You can complete those in about half an hour for the most part on most applications, and then you cut and paste your essay and you're ready to go. We want you to be able to understand the types of colleges you're applying to be able to research those and understand why you're applying, visiting colleges, working on your resume, doing some things this summer, having some fun. That's really important. Getting some sleep, getting some rest and relaxation, and looking forward to putting your best foot forward and looking forward to a great year in your first and second and third and fourth year of college. Some friends of mine have helped me with the substance of this PowerPoint presentation, Dr. Peggy Hawk and Bonnie Laughlin. We want to thank them. And then I think we're on to questions. So we will see how that rolls here. Let me see how to do this. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So some of the questions that have come up have really been related to why the essay is important. And as I've looked through those, I think that the really the important thing for students to understand is that college admission officers want to have you put your best foot forward, and they are in the profession to find students who are the right fit for their institutions. And the best way to do that is to find out who that student is. And as I said a little bit earlier, having the student understand the subject of that, or having the student understand how that student's life will mirror the mission of the institution. We'll look at why that student might fit in there, talk about the learning styles of the student. The essay is the best way for them to assess that, because transcripts are, one grade for a semester's or a quarter's worth of class. Test scores are one sitting on a Saturday. That's why the essay is important. It's the opportunity for that admission officer to get to know you as a person, and we think that that's important. The editing of the essays becomes really important as we look at the first essay. The first edit is your own edit, and then the second edit would be after you have read it out loud and underlined some phrasing that doesn't work, and you go back to that second edit and you understand which words don't work for you, and look at the first sentence and look at the first paragraph and look at the last sentence and look at the last paragraph. That would be the second edit of the essay, and I think that second edit is almost more important than the first, because you're deciding how this is all going to fit in. I think that will be very helpful. Okay. So I have a question about, if you don't know what you're interested in studying, how does that affect your college choice or your exploration or even topics for essays? So about a third of the students applying to college really are applying undeclared or undecided. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to put you at ease about that. Most students change their majors 3 times while they're in college. Some parents are concerned because they don't want you to waste time. But colleges have this figured out. This has been going on for years. So if you're not really sure about what you'd like to study, that's totally fine. You should look, when you're exploring colleges, look at the Academic Advisement Center on the campus under academics if you're looking at websites. See if they have a freshman seminar series where you're with other freshmen with a faculty member and you're doing a writing seminar, or you're doing an academic seminar, but that freshman faculty member becomes your advisor so that you can explore some different areas your freshman and sophomore year. Most students will change during the freshman and sophomore year anyway, so it doesn't matter. The only times that it does matter is if a student's looking at a very set major like engineering or nursing, which requires certain things to happen first and then second and third. Otherwise, colleges are encouraging students to explore a wide variety of areas in their freshman year, especially if they have a fairly open curriculum, so that I've never taken a class in French history, or I've never taken a geology class. Most high school students don't understand really what sociology means. Try those things, and you're going to find a passion. You're going to find something that really makes you excited to go talk at lunch with your friends, or go talk to the faculty member afterwards, or do a little bit more reading in the library or on your computer. So don't worry about that. And in terms of the essay, that doesn't affect the essay at all. So don't think that you have to know what you're going to major in order to write an essay. On occasion, and we have this out in California, the University of California application gives students a spot to tell us what else do we need to know. And in that second box on the UC application, it's generally conceded that that's where the student says, this is why I want to major in this area and why. But that's only on the UC application. So don't worry about that too much. I hope that answered a question from Laura. And then I have, how about those applying for universities in the UK or a European country? When should you start on your applications, and should they also expect essays? And I would say yes. There are different types of requirements for those applying in the UK and for European universities, and I would encourage you to get on those websites now and look at applications for international students, because that's what you would be. If you are living in the United States, you would be an international student at a UK university or a European university, and see what kinds of requirements they have, and see what their deadlines are, and see what kinds of testing, which in the Europe, testing becomes a little bit more important than it is in the United States. See what types of testing are required and what dates. I know that for Oxford and Cambridge, a lot has to be done before October 15th, which is before most students are organized to even apply to college. So I would encourage you to explore those websites, look at those application requirements, and start getting that done right now. Okay? And then we have another question. Is there a chance for you? Yes, this webinar will be available, I think, for 24 hours on the College Week Live session. So you'll have an opportunity to see the entire PowerPoint and the webinar again if you need to catch up on some of these things. We want to make sure that you feel like that this has been a helpful environment and a helpful presentation for you, and so that's why it's available for about 24 hours after this. As we talk about exploring, there's another question on here about, what specifically would I look at if I was looking at a website for a college? And every college website's a little bit different. They are organized mostly for prospective students to look at. But the first thing that I always encourage my students to do is go to the current students part of the website and look at what's posted there. Is it developments in announcements of current students winning fellowships? Is it announcements of research summer opportunities? Is it announcements of certain types of fun activities that are coming up? What's on the front page of that part of the website? And then to go into the residence life pages, to go into the academic advising pages, see who does academic advising, how is it available, and then try to look at even freshman orientation programs. When you go to the academics part, if you have a major in mind, it is often, and I had this experience with when one of my current students, seniors, about 3 weeks ago, every college looks at a major a little bit differently. A computer science major at one place is not the same as a computer science major at another place, or even a third place. Is to actually delve into the pages of the department and look at what their specialties are. Do they have an emphasis in this? Do they have an emphasis in that? What kinds of courses do all freshmen take? What kinds of courses are available in the sophomore, junior, and senior year? And what kinds of flexibility do you have if you wanted to have a minor, if you were going to a college or a university that offers the ability to major and minor in a completely different area? Is there enough flexibility in your primary area that you could actually pick up another major or a minor? And remember that majors and minors are not necessarily required for success in college. A lot of students like a lot of different kinds of things, and so you want to get in depth in those areas. But I would have you look at the academics pages and go into the catalog and read some catalog descriptions. Do those courses sound interesting? And how often are they offered? That's also important. The other thing I would look at is I would look at a Google Maps or a similar mapping kind of a thing to look at the college and see where it is, to pull it out a little bit farther so that you can understand where you're going to have an opportunity to see where that college is located, close to mountains, close to rivers, close to cities, close to airports. That's a really easy way to find out how to find out where you go, okay? I have another question about what is a Common Application College. So the Common Application, if you go to the Common Application website, they will list the members of the Common Application. Most of the Common Application colleges only use the Common Application itself. They don't have a separate application. And so if you're looking at Agnes Scott, if you're looking at Washington University, if you're looking at the University of Michigan, all of those applications will use the same first 5 or 6 pieces of information that you only have to, once you create an account, you only have to put that information in once, and then once you submit that information, it's the same for all of those colleges. There's that common essay that we just talked about, and then there's the opportunity for supplements that come up. But if you are not familiar with the Common Application website, I would have you explore that in just a little bit. You can establish an account, a login, and a username. But remember that the applications for 2014 fall, which I assume many of the people listening to me today are juniors, would not be available until August. You don't want to fill out an application now because those are not relevant. So the Common Application is an easier way to apply to a number of colleges. Some colleges require no supplements, and also a good way to get a lot of the information done. At some high schools, the counselors, and you should talk with your counselors about this in terms of process, will actually send your transcript and teacher recommendations and other recommendations electronically, which saves you a lot of time tracking down pieces of paper and tracking down envelopes and stamps. So it's a really good opportunity for you to use an easy way to apply. And there are more and more schools joining the Common Application. So that's a good question. And I think that I'm going to wish you the best now. I think that you all have great futures ahead of you. I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to have some fun this summer, but think about doing those 4 or 5 things that I suggested so that your senior year you can focus in on being a senior, enjoying your friends, enjoying your classes your senior year, enjoying activities that are available to you, and getting those applications done on time. So I hope this has been helpful, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.